Hello and welcome everyone to Researching Theoretical and Conceptual Frameworks. My name is Amanda Bezet. I'm a reference and instruction librarian here at NCU. Please don't hesitate to follow up with me directly if you do have any questions. You can reach me at abezet, so A-B-E-Z-E-T at ncu.edu. I'm certainly happy to assist. To begin, we're going to navigate to the Research Help drop-down menu and click on the Research Process. The Research Process Guide is a comprehensive guide to the research process, starting with finding a research topic and going down to scholarly publication. And so the section that corresponds to today's workshop is here under Resources for Dissertation Research. We do have a guide there called Researching Theoretical Frameworks. And so the guide itself says Researching Theoretical Frameworks. Please note that the same techniques apply to researching conceptual frameworks as well. So to begin, let's go ahead and talk about, in general, what theoretical and conceptual frameworks are. These establish the lens or filter of how the study will be viewed, as well as to develop the parameters to keep the study focused within an intended direction. They provide an argument defending why the research topic is important to study or why the study matters and why the methodology proposed to study it is rigorous and accurate. And you can learn more about theoretical and conceptual frameworks as they relate to your dissertation within the NCU Dissertation Center. So I'm going to navigate to the Dissertation Center. You can see that we have a link to that at the bottom of our research process guide. So we will open that up, and the section that you want to take a look at is under Chapter 1. So you can navigate to Chapter 1. And on this page, you have your conceptual framework guide and your theoretical framework guide. So let's go ahead and open these up just a moment so we can take a look at these. And I'll start with the theoretical framework guide. A theoretical framework provides the theoretical assumptions for the larger context of a study and is the foundation or lens by which a study is developed. This framework helps to ground the research focus under study within theoretical underpinnings and to frame the inquiry for data analysis and interpretation. So basically, it creates and organizes a theoretical model of how one theorizes or makes logical sense of the relationships among various variables, ideas, perceptions, and philosophies identified as important for researching a particular problem or issue. And so here on the right-hand side of this screen, you can see it says consider these 3 considerations to formulate a theoretical framework. And so, of course, your dissertation chair is going to be the absolute authority related to your theoretical or conceptual framework as it relates to your own research. So please don't hesitate to discuss this with them. He or she will be the best person to guide you in terms of your framework. But you do have a little checklist here at the bottom. Similarly, we have the conceptual framework guide here. And so this provides the detailed components, variables, identifying interrelationships in and across the components. While a conceptual framework is often referred to interchangeably with a theoretical framework, it maintains a distinct purpose. That being said, your dissertation may have both a conceptual framework and a theoretical framework. And the conceptual framework is used to clarify concepts, organize ideas, and identify relationships with which to frame the study. Creates a conceptual model for possible strategies or courses of action identified as important for researching a particular problem or issue. So again, you have your where to start, and if you scroll down here, you have your checklist. And just to reiterate, again, your dissertation chair is the absolute authority as it relates to your theoretical and conceptual framework. However, the library can certainly provide help with researching theoretical and conceptual frameworks. The next thing we're going to do is just look at a couple of example dissertations using ProQuest dissertations and theses in order to look at some of the theoretical and conceptual frameworks that other NCU students have used. So let's take a look. Here's a dissertation from 2019. And we can see that the theoretical framework of this research was based on Epstein's model of overlapping spheres. So this one has a theoretical framework. Let's take a look at this one. The theoretical foundation for this study involved information security, institutional and organizational culture theories, and in organizational culture theories. A conceptual framework for the study was constructed based on information security model. So this has both a theoretical framework and a conceptual framework. And this last one here, let's take a look to see if we can find that framework in this abstract. Social identity theory provided the theoretical framework, and a social identity leadership competency model served as the conceptual framework for the study. So you can see that in terms of an NCU dissertation, a student is going to identify in their abstract exactly what theory or model they are working from throughout their study. Now, there are several things to consider as we start thinking about the theoretical or conceptual framework. First of all, identifying theories and concepts relies heavily on your own thoroughness in the examination and synthesis of the scholarly literature. And I will repeat that because it is so important. Identifying theories and concepts relies heavily on your own thoroughness in the examination and synthesis of the scholarly literature. In other words, after you have read and synthesized numerous articles related to the topic, you will start to naturally notice a few theories or conceptual models that align with those studies. So it is possible for you to just come across whatever model makes the most sense for your research naturally as you're seeking out those scholarly journal articles. However, this workshop and this guide will definitely focus on techniques that can help to pinpoint those frameworks, right? So it'll probably be a combination. You'll come across things yourself, and then you can also search very specifically for that. Another thing to consider is that frameworks may come from an area outside of your immediate academic discipline. So if we are using search terms, and we will start searching using Roadrunner Search shortly, if we are limiting our search to our very specific research topic, we may not necessarily find that framework in that way. So we may need to look outside of our immediate discipline when initially identifying those frameworks. Lastly, you will probably find and discard several potential theoretical or conceptual frameworks before one is finally chosen. And I can't emphasize enough the discussions with your chair in terms of what is going to align with your own research. So now that we've talked about what theoretical and conceptual frameworks are, we've seen some examples in existing student dissertations, and we've talked about some special considerations. Let's go ahead and start searching in Roadrunner for theories and frameworks associated with a research topic. So these techniques, again, you may not necessarily need to use them except as a last resort if you're not naturally coming across those frameworks for your research. So let's start out, and I'll pop back to the guide first to show you first our Roadrunner Search example here. on our screen. So it shows that we are looking for the topic of curriculum design, and we've actually entered a term theory with an asterisk replacing the Y, and we'll talk about that when we do our live search. But just know that you can come here just to get a quick reminder of how to find how to construct that search. But let's go back and do this live. So I'm going to use the Roadrunner Search for our examples tonight, and I'm going to go into Advanced Search. And so we'll start out more specific, and then we'll get broader as we use a couple of different techniques here. So let's say that our research topic is information literacy, and we want to find theories associated with information literacy. So what I'm going to do right now is first type in my topic keyword, which is information literacy. And then on the next line, I'm actually going to type out conceptual framework. And we'll get to actually, let's start with theoretical first, and then we'll talk about conceptual. So I'm going to search for information literacy and theoretical framework. Of course, the phrases are, the quotation marks are used to search for these as exact phrases with no other words in between. If you're not familiar with techniques such as this, I highly recommend our Searching 101 workshop, which you can get to from our Learn the Library guide, which is right here under Research Help. Definitely Searching 101 is the best overview of how to effectively search within the library's Roadrunner Search. We also have some live sessions, including advanced search skills and running research with the Roadrunner, which will also address those techniques. So here we have our search, information literacy and theoretical framework. As we scroll down to our limits here, we don't necessarily need to put on full text. As doctoral students, you will want to make available as many articles and resources as possible related to your topic, and that might involve having to request them through interlibrary loan. You want to give yourself that option. So we don't recommend putting full text. We can, in fact, put scholarly and peer-reviewed journals, and I will do that for this search, but keep in mind, as it relates to theoretical and conceptual frameworks, there may be information in books, especially if the theory or concept is quite a bit older, that you may want to remove this limiter so that you're also looking for book content in addition to scholarly journal articles. Also, I recommend never putting a date published limiter on your searches no matter what, because even older research can lead you to newer research, but especially in the case of theoretical conceptual frameworks, because in reality, your theoretical framework may be 10, 20, 30 years old, right? So we don't want to limit this by date. So I'm just going to go ahead and press search, and we're not going to talk about our results so much. The focus here is on how to effectively search for articles that mention your topic keywords as well as the phrase theoretical framework. So we did get a number of results, 3,800. In this case, since it's a little bit high, I might think about saying, well, I definitely want information literacy in the abstract. That way I know we're really focused on information literacy, and that takes it down to a much more reasonable number of 530 results, which in actuality is a very reasonable set for you to look through in a given research session. So this is a great way to identify frameworks associated with your topic, but I want to take it a step further so that we broaden this up, because right now we are only looking for theoretical framework as an exact phrase with no other words in between. What if an article says the theoretical model? Well, we would want to pull that up as well. And we have a way to do that. And so what I'm going to construct now is called a proximity search, and I'll explain it after I type it all in. So what a proximity search does is it looks for a word or a phrase or a group of words near another word or a phrase or a group of words. So in this case, we have a single word. We have the in operator, which is always the command, and then we have a number of our choosing. The number represents how far away the next set of words can be. So what we're saying is we want theoretical within 3 words of either framework or of model. That way we pull in both iterations, and that way we pull in other phrases as well, such as so-and-so's model of blah, 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 theoretical model, different phrases. So let's go ahead and by the way, this part is called a nested search. So it's telling the database, choose one of these terms, whatever I have in the parentheses here. And so if there was another term meaning the same thing as framework or model, like design maybe, we could type that in as well, but I'm going to leave it as framework or model. So this we would expect to expand our search here. So we would expect to go up from the 530. So let's see what happens here. And we certainly did. We increased our results by not quite 300 results, but that's very important because that could be 300 results that you did not necessarily see before and that are very helpful. So we started with the most specific way of searching for the exact phrase theoretical framework, and now we've broadened that to do a proximity search. Now this number 3 is of our own choosing. So if we change that to 5, that means we would accept theoretical within 5 words of framework or model. The danger there is if they're farther apart, right, within the text, then how connected are the two of these pieces? I don't recommend necessarily going above 5. You can always give it a try. I rarely, if ever, will go up to 10. You can give it a try, but because we want the theoretical and the framework or the model very much connected, we may not necessarily want to go up as high as 5 in this case, but we'll see what happens. It didn't do too much damage, right? It just gave us about 60 more results, 59. So now we've seen a way to broaden it. We can even go broader. If we are interested in finding any theory, theorist, theoretical framework, theories associated with information literacy, we can actually just type in the word theory minus the Y. The asterisk will replace that Y because the asterisk will go wherever that word could potentially change. So in this case, we could get theory, we could get theories, we could get theorist, we could get theorist, and we could get theoretical. This is going to broaden it significantly, probably. In some cases, that's maybe a little too broad, but let's give it a try and see what happens. If we go too broad, we'll think about other ways to narrow it down. So now that we have over 6,300 results, that's too high. I wouldn't expect anyone to navigate through that many results. I would probably say, you know what, I'll put theory in the abstract too, or theoretical or theorists, just to see in what I guess context they're using the word theory. This just says writing theory, so in this case, that's not really a theoretical framework. Let's see, this says a theory-based conceptual model, so that's interesting. It looks like structural equation modeling. This just says theoretical approaches. We investigate existing theoretical frameworks. So you would have to go into that article to examine what those are. But you get the idea of how to proceed with that. Maybe start out with the exact phrase, theoretical framework, work your way to theory if you're still not really discovering what you like to discover. This is the broadest way of searching. So we could do the same thing with conceptual framework. So I'll go ahead and give that a try. with the exact phrase, and we'll update our search here. And we have just 126 results. Remember, I did put this in the abstract earlier, so I'm going to take that out of the abstract, which is essentially telling the database, as long as conceptual framework appears somewhere, I don't care if it's in the abstract or not, and that raised our results to 757, which is great. So we have done the exact phrase search. We could also do that proximity search where we do conceptual within 3 words of either framework or model, and that will certainly increase the 757. Again, if it raises it too much, we can always figure out ways to adjust that by maybe putting that in the abstract. So we will give that a try. There is one difference when it comes to searching for conceptual frameworks or models. I don't necessarily recommend going so far as to do the asterisk where we're truncating. That's called truncation, by the way, where we're looking for the truncated word of concept. So we would look for concept, conceptual concepts, because the word concept can be used really in so many different ways that it doesn't necessarily refer to a model. So we can try this, but it may throw us off. It may just give us too many extraneous results that don't really identify conceptual model. It just uses the word concept in passing, like the concept of time, the concept of anything, right? So this might be a little bit trickier to use if you're looking for a conceptual framework. It might be too overwhelming, and we do have 3,200 with those both in the abstract. But look at our first one, conceptual approach, represented by the framework. So that one seemed to go the way we wanted, but they don't necessarily always do. So that is how you can effectively look for conceptual and theoretical frameworks using the Roadrunner search. It's important to keep in mind that this is not a foolproof method for locating theoretical frameworks, because scholars will often cite theory or theorists in order to refute them, or because they're saying something that's just somewhat related, or maybe just referring to a theory in passing, and not necessarily focusing primarily on that concept or that theory. But that being said, I highly recommend this as a starting point, especially if you are struggling to identify those frameworks related to your topic. So again, it doesn't guarantee the articles will take a theoretical or conceptual perspective, but it's really the best tool that you have to do that. So moving on, probably the next best way to identify theoretical conceptual frameworks is to look in ProQuest dissertations and theses. So we will navigate there from the Research Resources drop-down menu, and we'll go to Dissertation Resources. We have 2 ProQuest dissertations and theses databases. You'll see that here we have an at North Central University version, which provides only NCU dissertations, and we have a global version, which provides dissertations from all over the world. So definitely visit the NCU one if you're looking to see how students at our university formatted or structured their literature review as it relates, or their chapter 1 as it relates to the theoretical conceptual framework. So really more for format here. If you're actually trying to find other dissertations related to your own topic, don't limit yourself just to NCU. You want the global version here. So keeping it simple, I'm going to say that I want dissertations with information literacy in the title of the dissertation. And typically, dissertations will require that students have the theoretical or conceptual framework. So you may be safer just to use the exact phrase here. So I'll try theoretical framework. And sometimes they will insist that that appear in the abstract as we do at NCU, but I wouldn't I wouldn't insist on that necessarily. But again, you can limit your search only to the abstract if you wanted to. And with the title searching, I don't often do title searching because I don't want to overlook valuable resources simply because they don't put something in the title. However, just for the purposes of today, I really wanted to make sure we focused on information literacy, so I put it in the title. Now, scrolling down, you can select only doctoral dissertations if you wanted to. Sometimes master's theses may identify theoretical and conceptual frameworks, so I typically will just leave it as is. So we will go ahead and press search. And unfortunately, in the search results, you don't see all of the abstracts right away. However, what you can do here is click Show Abstract over here underneath the record. So as we scroll down, we see that we may have to actually, with this one, hop to the full view in order to see the full abstract, which you can do by going to Abstract and Details. Let's expand the next one and see what we see. This study was guided by the work of two major experiential learning theories and theorists, Paulo Freire and critical pedagogy, and Jacques Mezirow and transformative learning. So those are the theoretical frameworks. And apologies to any education students for not pronouncing those names correctly. But I'll go to look at this next abstract so we can take a look. The theoretical framework used in the study was two learning theories, constructivism and cognition. Next one. I don't see that right away. Let's see here. You get the idea. You may not necessarily see those frameworks right away. You may have to go into the full abstract view to take a look at that. But this is how you can identify those dissertations. We could also do the same thing for conceptual framework. Keeping in mind the techniques we did in Roadrunner, a dissertation might say conceptual model. So we can always, try that proximity search here, which differs here in ProQuest dissertations and theses global, unfortunately. While we're on the topic, let me actually navigate back to our research process guide. So we were here under researching theoretical frameworks, but what I want to show you is under preparing to search. We do have a guide here on proximity searching. So we can see here that if we wanted to do a proximity search, meaning that in-8 like we did in Roadrunner, but we wanted to do it ProQuest dissertations and theses, here's the command for that. It's a near / the number. So let's give that a try. And we'll do conceptual near / 3, and we'll do framework or model. Okay, so this is how it looks here in Roadrunner. In ProQuest dissertations and theses. Don't worry about memorizing that. Just worry about being able to get to this proximity searching guide within the research process to take a look at those instructions. So let's update our search now. We're moving from that theoretical framework. Now we're trying to identify conceptual frameworks associated with information literacy using other students' established dissertations. So let's see, we have 365 results here, and I'm actually not sure what's happening because I'm seeing results from scholarly journals, not just dissertations here. So what I'm going to do quickly is just go back to ProQuest dissertations and theses global and start this search again. I'm going to clear the form and just paste in my terms from that other search because something went went wrong when we're looking for scholarly journal articles. We were just looking for dissertations, and I can't explain what happened there. Okay, so we will do the search again. We have 117 results for information literacy in the title and conceptual within 3 words or near 3 words of framework or model. So again, we could look at those abstracts and take a look to see if we can identify those conceptual frameworks from the abstract here. Take a look at one more to see if I can take a look. It looks like they looked at the New World Kirkpatrick model, so that might be their framework. So as you're seeing things, as you're coming across things, even if you know nothing about it, here's the information intermediary process model. If you don't know anything about these models or frameworks, just jot them down. Take them down because you can always go back and search for them at another point, either in Roadrunner or another library database. So keep a running list of what could potentially be models associated with your topic. I'll check one more here. And I don't see the model in the abstract because remember we said conceptual needs to be near framework or model, but not necessarily in the abstract. So that's why we weren't seeing those right away. So that I highly recommend using in order to see what other students use because they've already been successful in their dissertation, right? They have identified a theory or model to frame their study. So, why not take a look and see what they did? The next thing that we're going to talk about is using books to potentially find more information on theories and models. Because books are typically much more comprehensive than scholarly articles and dissertations, they often present a thorough overview of a particular discipline. However, since the ebook databases contain fewer resources than, let's say, Roadrunner, where you're primarily looking for scholarly journal articles, which we have millions of. There's not millions of books in our collection, so you'll want to maybe keep your search terms a little bit broader. So just as an example, I'm going to navigate to find an ebook, and then I'm going to choose eBook Central. eBook Central is our largest ebook database. It has, well over 200,000 titles. And so just as an example, let's say and again, I'm looking a little bit more broadly now. I'm looking for marriage and family therapy theories. So I'm going to do a search here for marriage and family therapy theories. In this particular instance, I did not use an exact phrase search. I can if I'm looking for the exact phrase, but let's just start looking at our results. We've entered into our book results. We also have the ability to look at chapter results. But here we see marriage and family therapy, a practice-oriented approach, foundations of couples, marriage and family counseling, marriage and family therapy, a practice-oriented approach. And so let's just go into our first book here. As we scroll down, we can see what will be the table of contents. Sometimes they are displayed immediately. Sometimes we have to look at subsections. And here you can see that we have a section specifically here for theories and marriage and family therapy. So sometimes students will say, well, do you just have a list of theories? That's something you could potentially search online, being very, very critical of any information you found online. But sometimes books are very good for providing, a list of different theories. So, if you're interested in rational emotive behavior therapy, you could go in there, structural family therapy, etc., and take a look at those theories. So ebook databases can provide some good information. You can also use them when you have already identified a particular theory or model that you're working from to try to see if there are any books that talk more specifically about that theory or model. The next technique we're going to take a look at is going into a database called Web of Knowledge. Web of Knowledge allows you to conduct a cited reference search to find articles that cite a primary theorist in your area. So in other words, once you've identified a theorist, it's a great way to sort of find a list of articles, developed and written by that particular researcher. So let's go ahead and go into A to Z databases, and we'll pop into Web of Knowledge. And by the way, Web of Knowledge is a very unique database, and it has a lot of bells and whistles to the point where we actually have a full workshop on using Web of Knowledge. So if this is something that interests you, I definitely recommend checking out our live events here under services, under library events, to see if we have an upcoming Web of Knowledge section or live session. So here we are in Web of Science. We can come to cited references, or we can come to authors if we just wanted to straight up search that author. So here you can search for an author to see their author record, versus the cited references allows you again to search for any time a author has been cited in other literature. So that's going to give you a lot of information related to that particular theory that theorist developed. So just as an example, I'm going to look for Minuchin. So let's type that in, and we'll do S. What the asterisk does is it looks for any alternate endings of his name. So if it had S and a different initial under that, we would look for that as well. All right, I have a typo. That's my fault. Okay, let's do this again. Okay, and here we have all of our 238 cited references. So you can see the list of citing authors here. And so as we scroll down, if there is one that does not look like it applies, we can always not select that one, but I will typically select everything and click See Results. So this is going to, no, thank you. This is going to provide you all the articles that cite Minuchin's research. So this will allow you to either search within your results if you're looking for something more specific, or you can come down here and narrow by either Web of Science category, or if we go down to research area, it's sort of similar. Where you're saying, well, you know what, I really am focusing on family studies. I'm going to refine that. And now I have all of these citing articles that cited any of Minuchin's work, which means if it cited Minuchin's work, then it definitely talks about, what he theorized. Another really great thing here in Web of Science is that you can see your results here according to the number of times cited. So that means if we sort by the highest first, that means this article from Kitzman and Beach in 2006, it has been cited 124 times. Followed by this next one that's been cited 102 times. So that means 124 other researchers referred back to this article, which referred back to Minuchin's work. So it's really a way to kind of spring forward in time, because now if I clicked on the 124, that would take me to the 124 articles that cited this 2006 article. So you're moving through the research timeline, which is great. And we'll also talk about how to use Google Scholar, which also provides the number of citations. But Web of Science is really good once you've sort of settled on that theorist in order to find related research. Next, we're going to take a look at SAGE research methods very briefly, just to show you that SAGE research methods is a tool that can provide you with a bit more information about the theoretical framework aspect of your research study. So as an example, I'll just go ahead and type theoretical framework as an exact phrase, and we'll take a look at our results. And so we have some videos about defining theoretical frameworks. So if you learn better by seeing a video, that might be extremely helpful. And then we start to see our book results that describe the theoretical framework components. So this one is success with your early years research project. This is theoretical frameworks from the SAGE Encyclopedia of Qualitative Research Methods. So we have a lot of results here that we can take a look at. And again, this is more for your own knowledge to better understand the theoretical framework or the conceptual framework we could have searched for as well. So this is a really good entry on what the theoretical frameworks are. So I just quickly wanted to talk to you about that. And that was the last library database that I wanted to cover, but I also want to pop into Google and Google Scholar. So we will start with Google Scholar. Google Scholar is an excellent supplement to your research in the library, and it's especially helpful if you've already settled on whatever theory that you are interested in. So just as an example, in one of our previous dissertations, we identified that the theoretical model was the model of overlapping spheres. I think that was the theoretical model, if I'm not mistaken. So if we wanted to find other articles that mention this model, we can look for that as an exact phrase in Google Scholar. And let's say that, let's see, let me take a look at what this topic was. So this was early childhood education. So let's say we're also looking for early childhood education. So we're looking for the model of overlapping spheres and early childhood education. And here we have 142 results that mention both of those terms. So this can be a really good way to make sure that you've examined any articles dealing with that model that you selected and your topic keywords. So this model of overlapping spheres, we see that in all of these articles. Now, many of these articles are open access online, whereas others are not. So a good way to link, or the only way to link Google Scholar to the NCU Library is here under our menu button in the upper left. If we go into settings, we can look for library links and then type in the word North Central and press search, and then it allows us to choose North Central University full text at NCU, and you can click save there. And now as I scroll down, I will start to see links like this one, which will take me out to that full text article within the NCU library. So this is a really great way to save some time, whereas now you don't have to go back and search for this in the library. And this operates on your browser's cookies, so if you use a different browser or a different computer, you will need to set that up. And we looked for a specific model in this case here, but just keep in mind that you can do general searches here in Google Scholar as well if you're not quite sure what model you're looking for. And you do have an advanced search screen here over on the left-hand side. So just as an example, if we're looking for the exact phrase, again, information literacy, and we want to find articles that have either conceptual framework or theoretical framework, I will put that in here. So I have information literacy. Actually, I don't need the quotes. If it's in the exact phrase field only, I don't need quotes. Google will pop that on for you. Anywhere else, you do need the quotes for phrases. So let's take a look. So now we should pull up, we have an overwhelming number of results because like Google Scholar has just an enormous index, but your most relevant articles should hopefully appear at the top, and you can always pop on a date limiter on the left-hand side of the screen as well. So here we see articles that mention conceptual frameworks or theoretical frameworks associated with information literacy. So hopefully this technique is going to be helpful to you. And then the last technique I wanted to demonstrate just relates to Google itself. So information that is retrieved online, especially through Google, should be heavily scrutinized, even more so than information you find from libraries' databases. And before we do our search here, I just want to point you back into I know I have so many tabs open, but I want to go back to our research process guide just to point out the evaluating information guide here on the left-hand side. We can either click to that main heading or go down to website evaluation to consider all of the techniques needed to effectively evaluate information, which you should be doing every step of the way, but again, even more so if you're looking online because that information has not been vetted by database professionals, librarians, etc. Okay, so here in Google, let's just say we're looking for online learning theories. We're just starting out, right? We're just trying to get a grasp on what theories might be associated with online learning. So I'll search for online learning theories. Now, when we do that search, we get, over 4.6 million results. It can be very, very overwhelming. Now, one thing that you can do here is, first of all, maybe take some time just to search through a couple pages. You don't want to get too in depth, but here we have theories and frameworks for online education, theories of education and the online environment, learning theories and online learning. Again, I can't stress it enough, being sure that you evaluate this information and then also find the corresponding information in scholarly literature if this is not scholarly. What we can do also is go up into settings and go into our advanced search. The advanced search allows us to limit our search to a particular site or domain, which means a .edu, a .gov, a .org, things that are more likely to be reputable websites versus commercial websites. So sometimes you can run into issues with .edus as they're pulling up a lot of college syllabi, class websites, that sort of thing. But you might also get some corresponding library guides. Once I've typed in that .edu, you'll see that the command for that is up at the top, site.edu or site::edu. I can change that here. So now if I'm looking for government websites or organizational websites, I can pop that up to the top as well. Keep in mind that some .orgs are commercial, a lot of them are professional and organizational. But here we can start looking at our results. So if I take a look at this result, which keeps coming up in my search, if we take a look at that, theories and frameworks for online education seeking an integrated model. It's a chapter, it says, whether a common theory for online education can be developed. So it's starting out with learning theory and might progress to, well, it's talking about behavioralism, cognitism, so it might progress towards, there's Bloom's, towards theories more specifically associated with online education. And so, maybe something like this is a document you did not discover in the library, and therefore it becomes really helpful when you discovered it online. But be cautious here. I wouldn't spend too much time within Google simply because it can be overwhelming and you can find non-authoritative sources here as well. So just to recap, a good way to review these techniques is to go into our research process guide for researching theoretical and conceptual frameworks, which is right here under resources for dissertation research. You can follow up with the library if you have any questions or need assistance with searching for literature related to a theoretical or conceptual framework related to your research topic. So that's why we are here to assist you, but your chair is the best person to help you align that theory with your actual study. But we're here to help you find the information as it exists either online or within the NCU library databases. And we're happy to do that. So please don't hesitate to reach out, and I hope that this was helpful.